Hi everyone, my name is Zach, and in this video I will show you how to add ropes to the luggage. For this we will use the curves to create the basic shape of the ropes, and later on we will add some nice details so that these cylinders are really looking like ropes, and this we will do using the displace modifier and a procedural texture. Alright, without further words, let's get started. So let's add a curve, a path. Basically, it doesn't matter what kind of curve you're using, these are just different shapes, but it's always good to start with a path because it is a very straight curve and it's easy to edit. Now let's change the appearance of this curve by changing some values over here at the object data. Under shape I changed the fill mode to full, and under geometry bevel I increase the depth. And you can see by increasing the depths, we in actual fact get a real shape here. So let's increase the resolution so it appears a little bit more round. And this is basically the thing we will work with. So with the depths you can control the thickness of the rope, and in edit mode we can now edit this, as you can see. To edit this curve you can move around these dots here. You can select the start and the end point and press E for extruding to extend this curve. Or you can select two or more and press W subdivide to add subdivisions in between, as you can see. And in this way we can now create our curves or our ropes to hold all our luggage together. Okay, let's start with the mat here. So we build one rope around this. And I noticed that these wooden parts here are quite close to the saddle. So basically what we can do is to simply select this stuff here, this stuff, and then we move this a bit to the back here. So we have a little space here to create some knots and all that stuff. So let's select the curve and rotate this 90 degrees. And now let's just get started and build this rope around here. Let's hide this object with H so we can better see where we have to go. So, and now I want to close the end here. For this we go to the object data and down here to active spline, and behind cyclic we check this U checkbox, and then you can see the first and the last one will be connected. So if we like, we can also add a mirror modifier, so we don't have to model both things individually. And now I want to create some kind of knot here, and for this I switch to edit mode, place my 3D cursor here, and then I hit Shift A. And then you can see, similar to mesh objects, we can also add new shapes directly inside edit mode. That means all this stuff is happening in the same object. So let's move this down here. And creating a knot is pretty simple, or at least creating the illusion of a knot. So I just create one of these curves, then Shift D, duplicate this and rotate this in the other direction. And now let's move this thing here a bit closer. And as you can see, this easy we've created a knot, and it's also on the other side. But now you can see right here it would be good to change the knot, but unfortunately we can't apply the mirror modifier here. So let's delete the mirror modifier once again and let's mirror this manually. For this I select everything in edit mode, duplicate this with Shift D, and then I scale it in the X direction -1. Now just move it over here. And then we can change the size of this knot here. Also, let's add some knots over here, like all these wooden parts are bind together. So let's add another circle. And if you want to make this thinner, just press Alt S to scale this. If all these strange lines here confusing you, press N, go to Curve Display and change the normal value from this here. These lines are basically arrows which are pointing in one direction, because every curve has a certain direction. For example, if you want to animate an object on a curve, then this direction is important, but for us right now it's not important, so I turn this down to 0.01, so I don't see the lines anymore. So right now I added a new circle, and you can see it uses the standard settings of the thickness we set here. But now I want to have the same thickness as over here. So let's select one dot here, press N, and under transform you have this radius, and that's the scale basically. So I copy this value here, select all here, and paste this value. Now you can see it has the same thickness as the rope on the other side. So, and you can see just these little ropes here add so much to the details. So now let's create a rope for the back up here. Well, I think it's okay if we don't add something for this back, because it's somehow in between the other two, so it looks fine for me. Now let's add something to the sacks. Here we can use a circle again perfectly. Now let's duplicate this two to the other side, so press Shift D again, move it over, scale it x-1, move it over here, and I also put one rope from one side to the other so that it looks like all the stuff is hanging together. So one last rope is missing, and that's stuff going up here. And for this, let's start a new curve. I select one thing here, press Shift D to duplicate this, and I press P, separate, and now this is a separate curve, and then all the other stuff don't get in our way. Let's start down here, somewhere in the knot, so we can't really see the beginning. So what we can try here is to enable snapping with the face snapping, and then you can see it snaps on the surface. It's not perfect because it's lying halfway in the mesh, but I guess it's a good starting point to make the whole process a bit quicker here. So up here I will add some circles. Then we can go on with this curve here. And then extrude one line down here. Let's duplicate this stuff, move it a bit over, make this a bit thinner, and create one line for this one here. So now let's move the objects. Something like this. And now let's add some other circles here. So, and same thing for the bottle here, we just add a few of the circles. And then we put it around the bottle. Okay, these are basically all ropes. The rest here and this stuff, for this we will use more like a belt shape. But there are one other thing that we can do with the same trick as the ropes, and that is the hair of this creature. So basically we have 4 strands of hair here. So let's enable the creature. So let's add a new curve. It's the same settings over here. And now let's build one of them. So let's delete 2 of the dots. This one here we scale down to 0, Alt S, 0. Move this down a bit. This we scale also down a bit. And then let's create the shape. For now from the side. So let's make this a little longer. And let's bend this. And now let's place this on the head. Maybe we can add a little shape over here. And now let's put it somewhere under the scales. Okay, now we have the hairs. I placed them under the scales here, as you can see. And I also try to shape them right so that it looks natural how they are falling down. Now we also need to add this thing here. It's basically something like the scales we had before. So let's add a simple cube. Add a subsurf modifier and let's edit this. Also here we can use the sculpt mode, apply the modifier. So now we just create a very simple shape using the sculpt mode in dynamic topology. And in this case let's also start with a high resolution because the shape is not that complicated. We just want to add some hard edges here. Okay, now let's do not drive this too far. It's just a tiny thing we probably never see that close. Okay, now let's move them to the white spot. And with Alt D I duplicate them because they are all looking exactly the same. Alright, I think that's okay. Now let's add some additional details using displacement modifiers for this hair things and also this rope things. Just one little note here, don't be confused that suddenly all the bells and other stuff is there. I just had to rearrange this following part which I just recorded much later. So everything is sorted in a better way. Certainly I will show you how to create the bells in the next video. And let's start with this here. Here we will use the same displacement as for the scales. So the problem is, here as you can see we can't add a displacement modifier because these are curves. So let's convert this into a mesh by pressing Alt-C and then mesh from curve. Click on that. And now you can see these are mesh objects. Now let's add the subsurf modifier and the displace modifier. Now let's check the scales. Here we are using the detail scales texture with a strength of 0.003. So let's use the same values here, and if we like, we can also increase the subdivisions to get a better result. And I guess with this little trick, this fits even better to this creature. And also, if we like, we can add the same subdivisions to these objects here. Maybe we just combine them by pressing Ctrl-J. So it's only one object now. And now let's simply copy the modifiers from this to this. So I select this, then with Shift the hair, then press Ctrl-L, make links to modifiers. So this is a little bit detailed now. Let's reduce the subdivisions to 1, I guess. This should be fine, because we have to take care that the overall quality is the same on every object. So, and now let's add some displacement to the ropes here. So I select the two curves here, press / on the numpad to enter local view. And as you can see right now, these are just these very simple cylindrical shapes. And now we want to add a displacement so that it looks a little bit more like a rope. For this we need a UV map. So let's split our view, switch to the UV image editor. Then I will join these two objects using Ctrl-J. And also we convert this into a mesh by pressing Alt-C, mesh from curve. And now as you can see, this is a mesh object. Now to create the UV map, we will use a simple trick. Let's switch to face selection. Select just one face of one curve. Then hit L with the mouse cursor above this shape. Then as you can see, the whole thing is selected, but the first selected face is still active, as you can see with a little bit different shading here. Now we press U for the unwrap menu, and here we will use this follow active quads. This will basically use this active face to generate the UV map along a certain axis. Leave everything as it is, then hit OK, and as you can see now, we have this perfect UV map, which is perfectly straight. And this we have to do for all of the ropes. In our case we have a lot of ropes, so this takes a little time. I will skip this part, but just one thing you have to take care about. If I want to now add the UV map for this thing over here, I have to again select one face, press L and then U. But if I now click on this follow active quads, okay, you can see that nothing has happened. And that's because you have to remove the UV map from this area. So I guess after I have generated the UV map for this thing, it automatically generates more or less a UV map for all of the other things. So we have to remove this first. And this is pretty easy. We press U, reset, and then U, follow active quads. Okay. And now we are generating a lot of UV maps, which are lying then above each other. So yeah, basically we now have to go through all of them, select one face, L, U, reset, U, follow active quads, okay. And since we have a lot of curves here, this can be quite confusing. So we don't know where we added the UV map already and where not. So I just hide the ones where I did this already. So just pressing H, H, and H, and if no curve is there anymore, then we are done, and afterwards you can press Alt H to unhide them. Okay, I will now do this for all of the ropes, but yeah, I will skip this part because it's always the same thing. Okay, I'm through. As you can see, we have now these many UV maps lying above each other, and the cool thing is that we now can edit all of them at once. So I select all of them, rotate them 90 degrees, and first of all scale them down so that it is fitting inside this square here, more or less. And now let's add some modifiers. First of all, let's add the subsurf modifier, and then the displace modifier. Let's create a new texture. And let's reduce the strings to 0.003 for now. And under texture coordinates, we use UV because we want to use a UV map we have just created. Let's click on this button to switch over to the texture settings here. And in this case, we will use this procedural wood texture. And as you can see, these are these stripes. And you already can see what happens here. We will generate this very interesting looking twisted shape. So, and if you want to change the count of the twists, basically, you just have to edit the UV map. So let's go over to the modifiers and enable this button. That means we will see the deformed shape also in edit mode. And let's see if I scale this in the Y direction and make it longer, you can see how this is changing the shape here. And this easy and quick, we can add this nice rope shape. And some of the parts are a bit more twisted. So in this case, you can unselect everything, then with L, select only this part. And then in this case, scale this in the Y direction and make it shorter. And then you can see we have less twists. And so you can adjust every single rope. Also, one thing you have to consider if you want to have a perfect shape here, you have to adjust the width of this ropes here. So let's scale this in the X direction. And you can see that in this way you can control this edge here. And if you have the perfect width, then this will align perfectly together, as you can see. So, and also you will have this bad ending, let's call this. And this you can also edit by scaling this UV map in the Y direction. So if you hold down Shift, you can scale this more precisely, something like this. Now you can see this is also fitting perfectly together. Let's switch back to the global view. Yeah, but I won't do this in this case for all of the ropes because in our case we don't need that ultra high quality, and I think we won't view this ropes that close. But if you look from afar, you have this very nice additional details there. The only thing that we can do here is if we check the displacement, you can see that with the displacement this rope is a little bit thicker. So we have more clipping here. And to change this, we can change the mid-level to 1. That means basically the maximum height of this displacement is the original shape we had before, and all of the displacement is just going inwards. Okay, and now we also can change the look of the rope if we like. We can go over to the texture, and here we can change these types to saw, for example. Then it has this crazy shape. Or what also looks nice in this case is this tree. Then it has this more cartoony look of a rope. And also we can adjust the ramp up here by moving these handles around. You can see how this is changing. And also we can add another handle here by hitting the plus button and move it over to the black area here. And to better see what happens here, let's increase subdivisions. And then you can see you have this very sharp line in between. And also you can change the interpolation type to B-spline, for example. Then this will be smoothed a bit more. Yeah, and in this way you can create different looking ropes. But yeah, in our case we don't need that high quality. So let's delete this one handle. Maybe set this back to sign, or however you pronounce this word here. And reduce the subdivisions to 2. Yeah, and this easy we can add this nice ropes and have a lot more details.